Following a surprise landmark anniversary installment for Marvel Comics' Amazing Spider-Man series, the publisher is in a super dark place with Peter Parker. Readers got to see the relationship between Peter and Norman dissolve over the course of the issue as readers began to learn that Norman Osborn had succumbed to his previous villainous ways as the Green Goblin. Elsewhere, Peter Parker has also taken on a more goblin-inspired approach to some of his actions and appears to be attacking some of his previous supervillains. My name is Erick, and today, let's explore some of the dark pages within the context of the Amazing Spider-Man's 51st issue. But before we get deeper into the video, I want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel. As if the Green Goblin weren't enough, the Sinister Six has returned too. When it rains, it pours, and this rain is going to put Spider-Man into a world of hurt. The Amazing Spider-Man is still written by Zeb Wells, featuring artwork from both Ed McGuinness and Todd Nauck. We have inks coming in from Mark Farmer, Todd Nauck, Cliff Rathburn, and Wade Von Grawbadger, with colors from Marcio, Menyz, Erick, Arciniega, and Bryan, Valenza. We have letters over from VC's Joe Caramagna, and the fascinating Goblin-inspired cover over on Amazing Spider-Man 51 is still illustrated over from Ed McGuinness and Marcio, Menyz. I really love some of the negative space and the way that Amazing Spider-Man's face mask is displayed over so much of his villains across the issue, including the Sinister Six. This issue is pretty interesting as it features not one but two interior artists, but author Zeb Wells and Marvel's editorial pick things up with the artist Ed McGuinness, really delivering this vivid image of a haunting dream shared between Peter Parker and chasm across the comic book page. I think the way that Zeb Wells and Ed McGuinness are able to interpret Peter's current headspace with all these goblin faces lingering in the background of the page is so beautiful. Plus, I want to hand it over to Marvel Comics for the excellent transition from the plot thread involving both Peter Parker and Chasm to the next page turn reveal of both Chasm and Hallows' Eve across the comic book page. I've really been waiting for Hallows' Eve and Chasm to step up their role in the Amazing Spider-Man, and I think it's fantastic how Zeb Wells was able to seed some of those plot threads regarding the Winkler device in the previous installment, as well as new revelations regarding Chasm and Hallows' Eve to make their appearance in this comic book issue feel really natural. Also, it's great to see Ed McGuinness draw some of the really tense facial expressions and interesting costume over for the character of Hallows' Eve. Following the fascinating plot thread involving Chasm and Hallows' Eve, readers are thrust into some of the brand new adventures of the Sinister Six. The Six get a chance encounter over for Norman Osborn with a surprise phone call and quickly begin to learn that Norman Osborn has succumbed to his previous villainous ways. Plus, Norman tries to prepare the Sinister Six that they're in for a deadly surprise when the Amazing Spider-Man returns in his goblin-esque form. Previously on the comic book, we mentioned that there were two artists gracing the interior pages of Amazing Spider-Man 51. The second artist on the series is Todd Nauck. Todd Nauck is able to interpret a really interesting scene involving the cameo character of Kamala Khan, who's made so many interesting appearances in this issue. Kamala actually has a pretty interesting conversation with Norman Osborn that does a solid job grounding the series in a little bit of continuity. One of the things that really tipped my interest during this storyline was I was unsure about how Kamala was able to know about Norman's new transformation here. Elsewhere, when the series is able to transition back over to Ed McGuinness, it was really cool watching Spider-Man wrap up the foes with his Sinister Six villains. As we previously mentioned, the Amazing Spider-Man is currently in a super dark place, and I think the final page reveal is a great moment of triumph for the overall series that's really established quite nicely in the first couple pages. Also, the Ed McGuinness illustrated last page of his installment of the issue is just so beautiful, with a really interesting layout and just great sense of interpretation from the panel design over from the foreground and background. For the final pages of Amazing Spider-Man 51, Todd Nauck actually returns and carries forward some of the plot threads involving the Walking Brain character from the end of Amazing Spider-Man 50. Getting to see the Walking Brain take things into his own hands and really try and save Peter Parker was a great way to continue the issue and capture so much of my interest as well. So at the end of the day here, I'm really excited about Amazing Spider-Man 51. I feel like this dark new lease on life for both Peter Parker and Norman Osborn is a great shot in the arm for the series. Watching Peter Parker dispatch all of his Sinister Six inspired foes with the abilities of a goblin was a great story element to witness, and a great way to watch Peter Parker finally exact some of his revenge over on the enemies that have been really plustering him for such a long time within the scope of the series. Also, the final page of this comic book finally gives a much-needed redemption arc for a character who I've been following for so long in Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man series. But I want to know from you, what did you think about some of the artwork from both Ed McGuinness and Todd Nauck? Did you like the plot implications in this issue? And what did you think about Kamala Khan's surprise cameo? Thank you so much for coming to check out our video review on Amazing Spider-Man 51, and we'll be back to see however this series winds down. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.